So Doom Patrollers, in episode 12, which is crazy to say, we've only got 3 episodes left, but in episode 12, Cyborg Patrol, we finally, well, somewhat got a near conclusion to that painting storyline with Grid maybe going off the rails as we go into the Bureau of Normalcy, right in their lair, and a whole bunch of stuff goes wrong. So this was a really cool episode for Cyborg, obviously being Cyborg Patrol. So let's break episode 12 of Doom Patrol Season 1 down. What is up, Doom Patrollers? Welcome to a brand new review for Doom Patrol. Now, I really, as always, guys, surprise, surprise, I really enjoyed this episode. I felt like Jovan Wade, I'm pretty sure, did a really good job as Cyborg. I really enjoy Cyborg anyway in this show. I know some people get a bit iffy about like the actual prosthetics, but for me, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not Justice League level budget like this show, but they do more than enough with VFX anyway. But anyway, this isn't like going on about his appearance. This is all about, I feel like, drawing near to that conclusion of the Grid storyline. I don't know if we got a proper conclusion. I'll get to that later, but let's just say, I guess somewhat predictable as well. Mr. Nobody had something very big to do with it, and that's all because, well, he did warn everybody to not go looking for him or the chief, otherwise they might kind of end up getting treated by Mr. Nobody, kind of like how the first Doom Patrol did, with kind of just him playing on their sanity, and that's definitely what Cyborg went through in this episode. But before we get into this, guys, subscribe to this channel for more Doom Patrol reviews just like this and other videos on the DC Universe. If you missed out my previous review on episode freaking 11, click in the cards above there. And other than that, guys, like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, because I need likes to survive. So in terms of my notes, there's not actually like a whole massive bunch to break down in this episode, apart from, you know, Cyborg got stolen? Wait, why he got stolen? It's like he is a piece of technology. Sorry, Cyborg, as we know, last episode, got kidnapped with, well, Jane survived that, from the Bureau of Normalcy. What I loved about this episode so much is that we got to see inside the Bureau of Normalcy. We can't forget how they were the Bureau of Oddities, which Chief was once a part of, but they have changed their ways. But I do like, you know, how we kept getting teasers of like the chief. You know, he seems like a nice, friendly kind of grandpuppy kind of guy, but there is that hard side to the chief, like that Kipling has spoken about. And I like this quote that Darren Jones said, I think, in this episode. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, well, you can take the man from the ant farm, but, you know, he was, I guess you could say after that, but you can't take the ant farm out of the man. Basically indicating that Chief is still quite, you know, what people are saying about him. Like, there isn't, you know, there's a lot more to him than what people just think of this guy who's looking after them. But anyway, guys, at the beginning of the episode, we of course see the ant farm with Darren Jones discussing Wilson. If you guys remember Wilson, he was the agent who actually went to Danny the Street, but then became a part of the street and a part of the community. That was pretty cool. I'm hoping we'll get another Danny the Street reference in the show, or maybe even him appearing again in one way or another. But they were discussing Cyborg, because I like how they were weighing it up, because they were like, it might damage our relationship with Star Labs because of obviously Silas Stone, not Victor Stone, what am I on about? He's a well-known figure because he's not Justice League level, but this is definitely a hero out there in the world of metahumans. Like, imagine if our world was a DC, like Earth 1 kind of thing. Out of all the people who have powers, you know, it's almost getting oversaturated in a way. Like, this guy's made a name for himself, so we also have to consider that if we're going to take him as well. But the one thing that the Bureau of Normalcy kind of keep like saying in a very technical way, but they're like, think of the applications, think of what we could do with him. So they're just thinking of what they can do. Apart from that, they exterminate anything that's odd, or like not normal, should I say. But they will try and take whatever properties they can from whatever they have taken. Now, in this episode, guys, of course, we saw a whole bunch of them studying Cyborg. They said that it was without his operating system, and I wrote down luckily there, and I feel like that was a tease to the audience that, you know, he definitely didn't have Grid, but I'll talk about the regenerating Grid later. But it's kind of lucky anyway, because who knows what they would have tried to have done to Victor if he had Grid inside him there and then, and tried to extract Grid, and who knows how dangerous that could have been if the Bureau of Normalcy got hold of that. But either way, you know, Larry goes over the Bureau of Oddities with the Doom Patrol. They kind of needed that explanation because they're not obviously as knowledgeable about it as the Chief is, because he was a part of the Bureau of Normalcy before it became that. He was part of the Oddities. But Larry was obviously captured. He was like, there's no way out of there. basically out of the ant farm. I mean, Chief was the one who got me out. Apart from that, like, what are we gonna do to save Victor? And I just love how this conversation kind of got left off with Cliff saying, you know, can't we just you just text Batman to save him, like, because he didn't really want to go in to save him. I just love the character drops, mainly coming from Cliff, I would say. Anything Justice League related, like Aquaman, Batman stuff, the Flash stuff we've had before, it all seems to come from Cliff Steele. But then, of course, guys, you know, Silas Stone rocks up to Doom Manor. Even though he gave Victor control, like, there's still one way or another he'll know that something is up. So he learns about Grid being on the computer. Obviously, we had that. It's like a little nod at that conversation that Cyborg had with Grid on the computer, because he is essentially taking the operating system out of himself. That's the important thing to remember here, because in this episode, throughout the episode, it seems as though Grid is still there, but, you know, we'll get to Mr. Nobody later. So we see Cyborg struggling in a cell throughout the episode. He wants to escape, and then we hear Inmate 722 or Cell 22, aka Flex Mantello. Now, this is our first viewing of him. The next episode, I think, is maybe called, let me double check, Flex Patrol. It could be, yeah, it is Flex Patrol. That was just a guess, but you know, it's not hard to guess when every title ends with Patrol. So essentially, he can't remember anything. He can't remember whatever they do to him every time they do it to him. But I think he's pretty much been there since the 1960s, if I remember correctly. And the next episode, judging from the trailer, just a little kind of quick preview to you guys if you haven't seen it already, you see Jane and basically the Doom Patrol trying to get his memories back, which does seem to happen, because then you actually get to see his flexing powers in action, which is a very interesting but totally Doom Patrol thing to bring to the show, or should I say character to bring to the show. And I can't wait to see how he contributes to getting back Chief. And this is where we can kind of go back to that Grid talk with Cyborg, like what was really going on, because essentially Grid explained it like, you don't need, even though I'm on your computer, like, I've just popped back in your head because I regenerate myself now. Like, the nanites basically regenerate Grid, as if, like, the original intents of those nanites were to regenerate any injury. Like, so a cut, it will, you know, self-heal with those nanites and kind of make him, like, depending on how big the injury is, more cybernetic. But now that can rebuild Grid. But to my understanding, unless I'm completely confused here, and we'll go over this more at the end, this was all in Victor's head. This is, and I'm pretty confident that this is how it panned out. This is what Mr. Nobody is all about, and they've been teasing all this kind of stuff for the longest time, ever since the original Doom Patrol. This is exactly what he does. One of his powers, anyway, is to kind of, like, take the sanity out of people, and you could argue that is what was happening throughout this episode, mixed in with a bit of like a seed planted in Cyborg's head anyway. If you plant something in someone's head like that, and then combine very stealthily different elements throughout the team, or should I say the Doom Patrol's members, like Jane painting that picture of Victor totally cybernetic with his father in his arms, it makes you paranoid. And this is exactly the seed that Mr. Nobody wanted to sow in Victor's head, and that it was working. So he was glitching out. Did really enjoy it when they all started to infiltrate the ant farm, and you know, we even got a line from Silas saying "suit up," which is, you know, quite a popular thing to say. I loved Cliff doing the Chewbacca roar in the elevator. I mean, come on, could this show just get any better with every aspect of it? I mean, if you guys know me, I'm a proper Star Wars nerd. Larry, I really appreciated that moment where the negative energy was in a little freaking, well, it wasn't in a bottle like this, but Larry could have left him there. And this kind of was the first time where we saw Larry not knocked out with the negative energy in a separate container. I found that very interesting. But Larry was like, you're coming with me, buddy. And he also, as they were like infiltrating the place, I found it quite neat how when they were amongst the operators, and it was probably quite a daunting experience for Larry, because he's been there before, tortured, as we've seen in previous flashbacks. He like told his negative energy, like, it's all gonna be okay, bud, like, you know, we'll be all right, because, you know, obviously the negative energy is completely terrified of this place as well. Do you remember that bit when the hand like went up against the screen? So I absolutely love how this show within 12 episodes has made Larry from a guy who completely doesn't like this foreign energy inside his body to becoming close to him and wanting to look after him and even care for him. That's just, I don't know, man. Like, I'm sure you guys completely agree with that. But of course, guys, we had that moment in the episode where they all got captured, and it seemed like Silas was betraying them, but really he wasn't, because we got that rewind in the episode where they planned to get captured, and I found it absolutely hilarious. Like, I didn't know how they were going to get out of it, but Come on, how did I not think of Rita being inside Robot Man's body and how she was drooping out like that? It was just absolutely hilarious. We had references to the rat that was running around and could have left a few smelly things in Cliff's body. The moments with Jane were just absolutely hilarious because she broke that guy's arm and the guy wanted to torture her, paid the guy off behind the glass so he could do whatever he wanted to Jane, and he was even grooving out to a freaking song, which then summoned Karen to also seduce the guard, which, you know, was a win-win because she could get out of that. I don't know, guys, this moment was absolutely hilarious. Obviously for Larry it was a bit more serious because I'm pretty sure that guy has worked on Larry before, way into the past. He's probably been in the bureau for the longest time. So with Larry it was a bit more serious. Like with Jane and Cliff it was hilarious, but Larry was just sat in there like, man, this is bringing back bad memories. At this point in the episode, guys, I love how Robot Man also pointed out that there's probably hundreds of people just like them, you know, freaks if you will, or like, you know, people who just are exceptions from your average dude in society, like Cyborg, Robot Man. You know, basically the Bureau of Normalcy will have a boatload of people with abilities that they have tried to eliminate or manipulate, just like they were trying to do with Cyborg this entire episode. So loads and loads of people are coming out, and I'm laughing because of the butts, but we'll get to the butts. But they definitely concentrated on this one room, and I think it was room 418, and there was a load of like eyeballs as if they were like the D-Creator and the Creator. Now, I'm not pretending to know who they are, but maybe one of you Doom Patrol guys who have read the comics, you know, right from the beginning, all of the issues, may be able to point out that Easter egg there, because they definitely panned into that room, and I feel like it's meant to be something that I'm meant to know about, but I don't. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. It could be nothing, but this moment was just brilliant anyway. I loved it when the negative energy just dominated all of those operators. Those operators looked freaky as well. I'm pretty sure they were like people, but with robotic-like faces. It was just creepy. But to give you an idea of how messed up the Bureau of Normalcy are, like this episode just gives you the perfect excuse, because Darren Jones stabbed his wife in the eye repeatedly because she put down the wrong piece of cutlery when laying the table, or it was like a plastic version of a fork that was supposed to be, I don't know. That is just crazy. How is this? I know it's like a black site run government, it's not even governmenty kind of thing, but like, just how? Like, this so messed up. It was just such a wickedly freaky, weird episode, labeling how freaky and effed up this bureau is. You know, then the general guy just, you know, in that boardroom, you know, he kind of ended his life because of the butts. Now let's talk about the butts. They were hilarious because they were like, sir, the butts are coming, and then people were running for their lives because we saw a massive horde of butts eat people like Darren Jones alive, I assume. So I guess, is that the end of Darren Jones now, I expect? Because I'm pretty sure he's quite prominent in the Doom Patrol kind of comics, especially for Danny the Street and, you know, other people. So I'm pretty sure he didn't survive that butt attack because he was like kind of clinging onto the door and he got ripped away. But I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow did. You know, whether it's season 2, it's kind of that cliche thing where we see him in season 2 episode 8 and they're like, how did you survive the horde of butts? How? But this brings us to the moment in the episode, guys, where obviously we had Silas, Victor's father, come to him with the chip. It was like little cool Star Labs logo on there, and it was grid. It's like, we need Cyborg, we need you to come back so we can get out of here. And this is the moment where, you know, adding in the perfectly craftiness of Mr. Nobody, that he's planted the seed episodes and episodes back, way in episode 1 or 2 as well, when he was showing Victor all those things. All that evolution and all that paranoia that Victor has had with you know, like Mr. Nobody's a genius because he's got the feel for this. He knows Victor's relationship with his father isn't the greatest thing, so he knows he would doubt him. So just at that moment when Silas comes in to save his son, you know, he plays that manipulated recording in his head, which is apparently from Grid, but really Mr. Nobody. And as Mr. Nobody confesses himself later on, that it was completely made up. Even that line, the specific line I'm on about, is where obviously we had that Star Labs work saying, have you considered all possible ramifications? The nanites could go rogue, Vic could become fully cybernetic or machine, there would be nothing left of your son. And then obviously we had Silas saying, your point. Now the reason why I want to discuss this right now in terms of what really happened here is that, as I just said, Mr. Nobody said that last line wasn't even real, but there is also like a truth to it, I feel, at the same time, because even earlier on in the episode, Jane said something to Silas saying, but how do you really know that the nanites wouldn't take over control? And they kind of left that scene there to make the audience think, oh, what if there is that element? So it kind of is making me think, so obviously Mr. Nobody is 100% taking advantage of the situation, and most of it was from Victor, but isn't there the aspect of the grid? Nanites potentially going rogue as well? I mean, I don't know where I fully land with this, because they didn't properly iron that out, unless I'm completely being stupid and it's flown over my head. I do feel like they have kind of left that a little bit open, because it is a real thing. Like, grid has gone rogue before in the comic books, but I feel like essentially what they're trying to label it off as here is, as I said earlier, essentially Mr. Nobody took advantage of what Vic was fearing about the nanites. Silas said earlier in the episode they only repair tissue, but you know, with the painting in combination, it adding up the paranoia, it kind of brought that painting to fulfillment when he punched his dad quite a few times very roughly. Now it seems like Silas is dead because Victor was freaking out, but I really don't think that is the case. I mean, I counted 4 punches. Now granted, somebody was saying in the comments down below, like, oh come on Boba, that's 4 punches with a metal freaking hand, but I really don't think Victor just killed his dad. That'd be really messed up. But at the same time, they definitely left it off that way, because it seems like, you know, Mr. Nobody was like, you did it, you know, that's it. And then we saw Mr. Nobody's like animation pop up on Cyborg's heads up display. But ultimately, I think this is just meant to be a massive salt in the wound from Mr. Nobody saying, I told you not to come looking for me. There was all those lines from Mr. Nobody saying this was all you, or, you know, sure, like Silas put the reset button in and Cliff pressed it, but after all of that, totally you, man. So I would love to know from you guys down in the comments below, do you think that this is a bit of a mix of both, like in terms of how this is obviously Mr. Nobody's paranoia and maybe some of his powers driving the sanity from Cyborg and just doing exactly what he did to the previous Doom Patrol as he warned them not to find him? I think where I land with it is that, well, we just need to take it from Mr. Nobody. He did say some of it like it was made up and it was all Victor. So I'm pretty sure, you know, Silas was correct. He was just going there to give him grid because that would have made Cyborg better, but we'll have to ultimately wait and see. Now, one thing I do want to say in terms of when Mr. Nobody was talking to Cyborg, the CGI was pretty bad on Mr. Nobody. Now, I can 100% say that because we have seen, obviously, Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody in that kind of split form before, way back in episode 1 and multiple times since then, but this was 100% all, you know, CGI rendered model of Alan Tudyk. It's like it wasn't even him. It's like they were trying to mimic his mouth and the body and his face to those lines, so I'm pretty sure all of that was ADR. I don't know why he couldn't be present in that scene, but that was definitely not him. I mean, if it was him in that green screen kind of suit, I don't get why it wasn't any better, but you know, this show is doing so much with visual effects anyway, maybe they do have to take some cuts in certain places. But that was the episode, guys. So, you know, I don't think we're going to get to see much of Cyborg next episode. Maybe a scene. I mean, he's not in the trailer at all. It seems like the rest of the Doom Patrol are seeing what Flex is all about and maybe trying to recover his memory. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if we also see a scene with Cyborg with his father in hospital with a whopping great big concussion. We will see a scene from Cyborg maybe eventually explain how I can't believe I let Mr. Nobody get in my head. I don't know, but I'm really enjoying this. Really enjoyed this episode. Fantastic. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Other than that, guys, like the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe for more Doom Patrol reviews just like this and Swamp Thing and everything else. Links are in the description down below to my Discord server if you want to talk about Doom Patrol with me directly and other social medias. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Doom Patrollers in the next video. Goodbye.